A federal appeals court reinstated key parts of a Texas election law that was passed in 2021. Mail-in voters will have to provide an ID number or part of a social security number that matches state records. And if the numbers don't match, election officials can reject their mail-in ballot application or their ballot. Vote Beat editorial director Jessica Huseman joins us now to explain what this means for voters. Jessica, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
So this all rolled out. People may not remember it, but the Democrats broke quorum when this part of this bill, this sweeping elections bill, was on the table. I think people think about the most recent time they broke quorum, but they broke quorum before that. And it was really significant back then. Tell us about what exactly was all in SB 1.
Yeah, this is a pretty wide-reaching bill, and majorly, I think it would do exactly what you say. This was in response to Harris County opening up a lot of mail ballot and drop-off options during the 2020 election. The Republicans in the legislature hated that and decided to sort of limit the way that you could return your vote by mail, and also put additional requirements for identification on vote by mail ballots. And so now the requirements that they wanted, which is, as you say, putting an identification number on that ballot, is proceeding for the November election.
This was really significant. So many things about this legislation was significant. One of them, counties can no longer send out applications for mail-in ballots, right? You have to request that ballot be sent to you. And the number part is tricky for people, we found out. Tell us why.
So it's tricky because, people write numbers down wrong. That's the primary one. But also, the database that manages voter registration in Texas is far from perfect. It is entered by hand. Texas is one of the very few states in the country that does not have online voter registration, which means that all of the information that's in the database about you was entered by hand by someone else, right? And that is a recipe for making mistakes. People's the social security number, two numbers get transposed through no fault of your own. That does not reflect your actual social security number, but that is what is in the voter roll. And so I don't expect that to be a huge problem, but some voters will get caught up in that because, again, this is a man-made data set. And so expecting two numbers to match perfectly every single time is unrealistic. I think that people will register with an ID that they do not ultimately use when they cast their ballot. They may have registered with their driver's license number. Your social security number may not be in the voter registration system at all, but when you go to fill out your ballot, you don't have your driver's license handy, but you do know the last four digits of your social security number, so you write that down instead. Well, that's going to constitute a mismatch. And so I think that this could really be confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah, that was, I think, the biggest complaint that I know I personally heard from people saying, I registered to vote decades ago. I don't remember what number I gave them back then. So then, of course, when I wrote down a number on my envelope, it didn't match. The judge, though, did decide to go ahead and reinstate this. Can you tell us about the decision, about the ruling?
Yeah, mostly it was a standing decision. The appeals court was very critical of the district court's opinion, said it was too sweeping, challenged the standing of the plaintiffs, and said that the plaintiffs had not done enough to prove that this would actually result in harm. And so that's what we're working with. And I think that one of the interesting things to note is vote by mail is really rare in Texas. The people who are allowed to vote by mail constitute a pretty small category of overall voters in Texas, and it's always been that way. That is not the result of this law. The vast majority of people who vote by mail in Texas are over the age of 65, and increasingly those people prefer to vote in person. And so while this is going to impact quite a lot of people, because Texas is a huge state, it will be a smaller percentage than in many other states where vote by mail is much more commonly used.
We should note the state did try to put some things in place to mitigate if something happens with those numbers, tracking the ballots, tracking your mail-in ballot, right? And that online database is now available. That's one of the things that's supposed to make this easier to use and prevent confusion, right?
Absolutely. So, ideally, a person who mails their ballot in tracks it the whole way online. And so, as soon as that ballot is rejected, they can tell that it's been rejected through the online tracking system. I think that the obvious problem here is that, again, the vast majority of people who vote by mail in Texas are much older than your average voter in the state of Texas. And so their ability and willingness to track their vote online may be limited.
Yeah, it will certainly be interesting to see how it shakes out. And it's all happening just a few months, right, before the November election. I mean, the timing of this is really critical.
It is really critical, and I think that it's going to be incumbent on election officials to do quite a lot of voter education to make absolutely sure that this happens. County election officials are under-resourced. They are really already preparing for November, which, in their minds and also mine, I cover voting every day, is basically tomorrow. This is coming up so fast, and so changing requirements this close to an election is just going to result in confusion because not everyone who's going to need this information is going to get it before election day.
Right, and with the new Secretary of State at the helm of it all. All right, VoteBeat editorial director Jessica Huseman, we thank you so much for taking some time out to talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.